What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoundHound. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with data points. Thursday is going to be a big one to watch for, so that is GDP and then PCE on Friday. Aside from those two data points, almost every single day you have at least 3 Fed speakers. So that is going to, of course, move the broader market. Tuesday and Wednesday, you do have Powell. So, of course, that in among itself is going to be a lot of volatility. But I'll throw this up here. So this ultimately is all the Fed speakers and how the market usually does interpret their speeches, whether it be bullish, more up oriented towards the higher end, or the lower, as you can kind of see. So I'll highlight this, so feel free. So you see Waller on the lower end, Mester on the higher end, but ultimately you have almost every single one of these individuals speaking this week. Companies unveiling their earnings, only big one to really watch for that could really impact SoundHound and the tech sector is ticker MU. So that one's going to be a one to kind of watch for Wednesday after hours. Specific to SoundHound though, the only thing that they have coming up is this right here. So this is on June the 24th. So it is a webinar. It looks like they actually are recording this, so that's kind of a good thing. They've been doing a couple speeches recently, nothing that's recorded, nothing that was posted by them, kind of clips or anything, so rather unfortunate. But nonetheless though, this one is actually going to be recorded, so let me know your general thoughts on that. But based on the topic, so healthcare's 2025 AI playbook, it could be good. I think it'd be more kind of conversations on what is happening in the sector rather than specific to SoundHound, because that's what SoundHound's actually been putting out for news lately. It's more broader type of stuff. What is happening in the automotive sector? What is happening in the AI healthcare sector? So a lot of news, more broad and vague and stuff like that. So I don't really see this being a crazy catalyst that you need to stop what you're doing and buy a SoundHound, because I don't think this would be the kind of venue for SoundHound to drop some new news, in my opinion. But hopefully they do. But nonetheless, going into this upcoming week, 33.21% of the free float is being shorted. So once again, we hit a new all-time high short interest. Some people might like that if you believe it's a squeeze play, others maybe not so much, but 121.1 million shares being shorted overall, and that does work out to be $1.14 billion. As far as what options is really portraying for this upcoming week, you see the bulls roughly anticipating for it to be between that 10.50 and 11, bears for it to be sub roughly 9.50. So given where we are at, there is more upside clearly anticipated. With it closing on Friday at 9.57, that does mean that the 9.50 and below strike prices are essentially in the money. So you have 7,000 at that 9.50, 3,000 at that 9. Both combined works out to be roughly 1 million shares. And even looking on the secondary market, you do see roughly about 800,000 shares that was done after hours. So most likely that was market makers covering some of those, but still there's roughly 150 to 200,000 still needing to be done. So most likely you'll see a little bit of a bump up come Monday. So something to kind of keep in mind. Whether shorts allow that or not, that's going to be the $1 million question, because shorts, what they've done lately is they really hit hard first thing and then they kind of taper off in the second half of the day. They went back to that and are reverting back to that strategy. They did that when SoundHound was really breaking higher, when it hit the peak of like $22 to $24. They were hitting it hard every single day. Just clearly there was a lot of buying at that stage. But going into this upcoming week with it at 9.57, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 9.55 is going to be a key support, so you really want to watch for that. So that's going to be a good pivot point. But 8.97 is going to be a following support level, and then 10.12 followed by 10.47 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. There hasn't really been all that much in analyst ratings, so most likely you won't be seeing any new ratings up until SoundHound's upcoming earnings, unless they do somehow drop some amazing catalyst news. But it doesn't seem to be like they don't seem that motivated to put out like any news, because even though they put out news on the 17th and on the 4th, like I said, it wasn't really specific to SoundHound, it wasn't really crazy good, and whatever else. Even technically the news that came out on the 29th, that was old news. That was already well-known information. So it's been a while since they've actually put out actual news. So I think SoundHound is just, luckily enough, piggybacking off of the momentum that's been kind of building in the broader market. Even Friday, you saw a huge push to more speculative plays. So I think this is why, again, SoundHound did get a abnormal amount of transactions, like a good amount of buying, because even looking on here, these are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So 18.1 million, 1 million, 1.5, 1.2, 4.4. So big money definitely was getting into SoundHound. So that's always welcomed, especially with a momentum stock. You need capital to get in. So again, I think SoundHound, with or without news, should really piggyback off the broader market and really move higher. And right now it is bouncing off of that 50-day moving average. So next strong kind of point to watch for is going to be that 200-day moving average at 992, followed by that 100 at 1022. So at the end of the day, you could see a very nice push higher this upcoming week if we do have good data such as GDP as well as PCE. In my opinion, I feel like the market is, I wouldn't say over the conflict that's happening in the Middle East, but I think if it just stays the status quo, it's not really going to impact the market all that much. The next thing that people will be watching for, as far as that goes, is if the States does truly enter and attacks Iran. That's going to be kind of what the market freaks out over, but I feel like that isn't going to happen. I'm clearly not an expert in that though, so what do I know? So let me know your viewpoint on SoundHound. So in my opinion, I feel like for this week, SoundHound will actually be moving higher and trading by the end of Friday between this R3 and this R2. So between 1105 and 1047. Most likely kind of middle ground. I don't see it breaking above that 1105 unless something crazy substantial does happen, but I feel like just the broader momentum and risk on in the broader market is going to push SoundHound higher this week. Let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. Give yourself a shout out. Have you been buying? Have you been selling? What have you been doing with SoundHound? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you are looking for some kick-ass buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.